So today's the 7th day of Adar, the Yortzeit of Moshe Rabbeinu, the birthday of Moshe Rabbeinu, 7th of March.
Where's the books?
I don't know. I can't get it now. It's on the bottom usually.
What's it? Oh, you want this?
Okay, Shema. I forgot about it. פה באמצע בדרך כלל זה היה. יש שמה? למטה? דרך מצוותיך? הנה, אני רואה אותו פה למעלה. באמצע? עוד, הנה. Okay. So we didn't have the phone yesterday, so we couldn't record. So we'll just read it quickly, what we did. So all these faculties extend and come from the soul, and it cannot be said that even before they extended to the vessels of the body, while they were still included in the soul, they were also in a state of division in this manner. For if you say this, you would be dividing the soul into many parts according to the nature of the body's organs, but in truth the soul is a simple unified essence. And this sentence is the crux of the argument here. But again, it's an argument about the soul. It's not going to teach us so much. It's just because of the analogy. He wants to really explain to us what igulim and yosher are, what circles and lines are. So we're still in here, 152. All these faculties, this is because the 10 sefirot are found in action itself, meaning in asiyah. What did I just do? Moreover, we see that the faculties of the soul and the body are opposed to each other, such as the warmth in the heart and the coolness in the brain. As it is written in the Tikkun Zohar, wisdom in the brain, understanding is in the heart. Wisdom is a source of kindness, which is drawn like water, and understanding is a source of the severities, which are likened to fire. After they are clothed in the body, they have special vessels and specific domains, and one does not extinguish the other. But if you say that they were also found distinguished in their root in the soul, besides the fact that they do not have special domains, since the soul is spiritual, right? If something is spiritual, you can't divide it into domains. That's a big difference between spiritual and material. Material has separation. Otherwise, they would extinguish one another. However, this is certainly a clear proof that while the faculties were in the soul, they existed in a different manner than when they are later clothed in the vessels of the body. For when they are much higher and finer up there in the soul, than the form they take later after being clothed in the vessels, to the point that in their root they are not opposed to each other at all. Even then, they are all included together in the soul without being divided into specific parts as they later are in the vessels. The soul, being a single essence, encompasses them all together in a unified view. Now he's coming back to the meaning of this analogy. Ve'ata sima libcha.
A question.
Yeah.
You said the soul can't be divided.
Right.
It's in this world because the soul is too high spiritually. But on a higher level, the soul could be divided, or not, or it can never be divided. See this, it can't be divided.
It's not divided. Something somebody would come up with is Chamesh Shemot Nikru La, right? It has 5 names. That we say that the soul has 5 names. Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya, Yechida.
Yes.
Okay, what are you looking at and it's bothering you? Nothing. Okay. So I thought you were going to say something about what it says there. So the fact that it has 5 names, the Rebbe always was very careful to say this exactly. It has 5 names. It's like there's you, and you have 5 names. But the you is still an essence, is still one thing. And you can name it by many, many names. And the names are like when we talk about Hashem. Hashem is one, and we have many names for him.
So all these different names
don't mean the parts. They mean different manifestations, and they only are revealed when the soul is enclosed in a body. Right? You have to have some kind of connection to the material world to get these names out. Otherwise, that's the value of life. Because when the soul is in its pristine state in the spiritual world, before it comes into a body, before it is enclosed in a body, so it doesn't have the ability to manifest itself. It doesn't have the ability to affect anything. And its faculties don't come out. So, now he says, Ve'ata sim elibcha et hamashal. So where are we? Ve'ata sim elibcha hamashal. We're 6 lines down on Ayin Zayin. ואתה שימה לבך המשל הזה. So pay attention to this analogy. איך מהנפש היא עצם פשוט וכוללת, כוחותיה כאחד, מתחלקים אחר כך לכוחות פרטיים שונים על ידי הגעתם בכלי הגוף המחולקים כנ"ל, והבן מזה בנמשל למעלה עניין עיגולים ויושר. So now pay attention to this analogy, how from the soul, which is a simple essence and encompasses its faculties as one, and they are later divided into specific faculties through their arrival in the divided vessels of the body, as mentioned above. Understand from this the analogy above the circles and straight lines. How does this work? כי הנה נזכר בעץ חיים שמקור העיגולים הוא העיגול הגדול שלפני הקו, המקיף את הכל. ומקור היושר הוא מהקו שנמשך מאור אינסוף אל תוך החלל. So in Eitz Chaim it says that the source of the circles is something called the great circle that precedes the line. Which line? We haven't said yet, but the line, we all know what this line is, encompassing everything. And the source of the straight line is from the line that extends from the light of the infinite to the void. So we know that what's going on, that when Hashem, this is the description of the creation. And a lot of people understand it mistakenly as if the Arizal is going to write a new chapter of Genesis. He's not writing a new chapter of Genesis, he's just explaining to you, in general, whenever there is creation, any type of creation, doesn't have to be Genesis, a creation of the world, it can be anything that we create. So first there's a great circle that's formed. What is this great circle? It's a border between before and after. You could say it's a time border even. But it's really a border between yourself and the space you need in order to create something. And then you begin to insert your thoughts, everything that you had, your plans, into the space that you created. And that's how Hashem created the world. He first had to make space for the world. Space, what do you mean?
Like it's a boundary.
Right, so it's a boundary. So really, the great circle is a boundary. It's a boundary between the infinite and the finite. And then, from the infinite, he begins to, like with the straw, to insert the plan, the idea, the whole thing. Okay? So that's the circle, and they are the sources. So let's think about it like this. A good analogy is a laboratory that you want to study nature. So what do? You can't take all of nature at once. You'll never figure anything out. It's too complex. So you create a sterile space. You call it a laboratory. And in that laboratory, you're going to control all the variables. Hopefully. You can't really control it because nature is everywhere. In the same way, Hashem is everywhere. So you're saying, I'm creating a world where there's free will. Okay, this is very nice. But still Hashem is there. You can't really take him out. Right? That's the whole idea of Aristotle's saying that nature abhors a vacuum. It really abhors a vacuum. There's no such thing as really a vacuum. Vacuum from what? Vacuum from air you can create. That's not the issue. But try creating a vacuum from the laws of nature. There's no such thing. Try creating a vacuum from Hashem. That doesn't exist. Okay? Those things don't exist. Still, relatively speaking, we're creating a vacuum. Relatively speaking, we're creating a sterile area where we can begin to control what is happening. And so that's what Hashem does. It's what everybody does. If you want to start working, I always saw this one time. I don't remember how this happened, but Rav Yitzchak saw my desk, and he went, like you can see inside, he went ballistic. You couldn't believe. So how can you work like this? And I took it from that moment on that every day before I start working, the desk has to be clean. It doesn't matter what. The Rebbe was very like this also. When people walked in for a Chassidus, it doesn't matter how cluttered the desk was before, everything was gone. It was clean. He says, I can't begin to do something if my work area is not clean. It's just not going to work.
There are some people who can. I understand. I understand what. There are some people that just completely cluttered. I've seen this.
If you're in the middle, it can be cluttered. If you want to start something new, it doesn't work. Mamish, it doesn't work.
He was a very famous Jewish professor, Kleitman, very, very famous. One of the top people in there. He went in there, he was the Jews. He said to me, listen, once a month I take everything here.
Okay, there you go.
Once a month.
Once a month. Every person creates a different schedule. So the Rebbe used to buy wrapping paper, brown wrapping paper. And so he had safsalim, safsal.
Bench.
He had benches in his room. and he'd move everything onto the benches, and he'd covered it with wrapping paper, so you didn't know what was underneath. And that's how we would see people, because when you want to see someone, this professor, he knows what's going on from day to day. But if you bring someone else in, you can't even begin to talk to them because there's no common space. Everything is, I'm overwhelming you already. And the Rebbe didn't want people to have that feeling. And we can't have that feeling. So again, every person on the schedule. Some people need to do it once a week. I remember I had a famous, he's also, Max Klein. He was a nuclear physicist who was very instrumental in building America's nuclear reactors. He's a cousin of my father. And he told me that they lived in Washington because he was in the regulatory of the construction of these things. So he said he walked into their apartment once, twice during the week, and he never seen like the main table where you eat. It looked like like they were storing the National Archives there. But on Shabbos, Erev Shabbos, we're very from Erev Shabbos, everything would be gone, because you can't. So he says the same thing. You have to learn how to do. You have to learn how to create this great circle, which is a boundary, and within that boundary now you can bring in and create things. But interestingly, when we look at the great circle, we're not looking so much at the area that's formed inside. What he's saying is we're looking at the area that's left on the outside. That's what we're interested in. He says when you create this great circle and you push everything out to the sides, then what you did was that on the outside you have everything inter-included in everything. The mess is still there. And everything there is still one. It's all included there. That's like the sense of the soul before it comes down into the body. That everything is there, but it has no separation. There's no separation between things. Now, imagine that you're building something, and you have to clean the table, and you move all the parts to somewhere else, and you begin to take one by one. You take one by one, and you put it into the center of the table where you now have space. That's like the soul entering the body. And then you begin to see the distinguishing parts and how everything. So he says that the great circle is a state of everything being inter-included. Everything is like the soul before it comes into the body. And the line that comes down is now the enclothement of the soul within the body. And in the line you begin to see the differentiation. So he says, so that's a great mashal, that's a great analogy for understanding Igulim and Yoshel, circles and lines. So whenever we see a circle, it's like a state of everything being included together. And whenever we see a line,
no, I just want to give you a PS on your screen.
Okay. So, and when you see a line, so you understand that now we're distinguishing. We're telling the difference between the parts. So I think that the analogy we started with, that the lines are human nature, and the circle is nature, is a great one. Because again, in nature, everything is there, but I can't control it. I can't study it even, because it's so complex.
I wonder whether it's connected with Newton. It's an integration and differentiation. I don't know.
Right. Integration and differentiation. So integration is the only integration that's interesting is under a curve. If it's just a straight line, I don't need to integrate. I know how to calculate the area anyway.
Something like 90 degrees, you can't differentiate there.
Right. Then there's no differentiation to a 90-degree curve. It's not a curve. It's a. Okay. What do you think?
That the Rebbe's nest was always empty.
Not always
Anybody
empty.
Who came into Yechidus,
Anybody came into Yechidus.
The Rebbe would always, very often, would open the drawer, and inside the top of the drawer, with a pile of everything he wanted, was a letter from that person from 45 years ago. Or from
he prepared. He prepared for every person. Of course he prepared. Not only did he prepare, there was a system.
He didn't know most of the people who were going to come in at that time. He didn't have a list of the people.
Of course he did. Of course he did. When you had Yechidus, you had to say when it was going to be. Of course you knew.
I don't know.
You have to make the appointment 3 months ahead, 4 months ahead.
But I don't think the Rebbe had
The Rebbe, of course he knew. He's not a child. He gets it and he prepares. One of the big things in a Yom Yom that everybody needs to, like, especially people like me who are not that way, needs to post in front of them, is Beluvavitch Yes Seder. that the thing that the Rebbeim worked on the most is that people should be ordered and organized. And when you're ordered and organized, things actually work. And when you don't, there's only some. And the Rebbe remembered everybody. That there's no question of. He didn't need a letter to remember, but he prepared for people. He brought the letter from somewhere. It was in the secretariat. They had it filed under something. He didn't keep it in his pocket for 90 years and then bring it out. Okay. Right. That's the Yom Yom of there. Okay. Shabbos should be a day of order.